Hello, Wear Many Hats listeners. It's your host, Mark Robinson, here again today. Hope you are all well and enjoying the weather. Another exciting episode for you today, something a little bit different. Another facilities management professional, but in a slightly different sphere to what we used to here on Wear Many Hats. We're joined today by the director of Acumen FM, Bernard. How you doing, Bernard? You okay?
I'm good. And you?
Yeah, really good, thank you. Did you come far or?
No. Well, I'm London-based, so yeah, easy journey in.
Oh, that's not too bad then, is it? Yeah, just down on one of the lines?
Yeah, Piccadilly.
At least it wasn't the central, Bernard. Okay, well, listen, thank you very much for joining us here today on the show. Absolutely great to have you here. First off, tell us a little bit about your career journey into facilities management and how that's led on to what you currently do.
So I was headhunted into facilities back before we called it facilities.
What was it called back then, Bernard?
Well, it was all the separate, so there was security, there was cleaning, there was hard services.
Yeah.
Or maintenance, I think we referred to it as. And a friend of mine knocked on my door one night and said, "Oh, look, I've got a great job for you. You'll love it, and I think you should come and do this." So that was my route in, and I was convinced. I was working for a company. I said to the boss, "There must be some sort of association I can join. Some sort of these people called facility managers. They must have some sort of body or something." He said, "No. There's nothing like that." So I decided to prove him wrong. Found what was eventually to become the BIFM and now the IWFM.
Yeah.
Joined the BIFM, and then realised that there was all these other things that FMs do. And I love variety. I love change. And I saw this and I thought, this is amazing, isn't it? So in the future, I can work on hard services, soft services, business continuity, quality management. You name any project management, move management, space planning, interior design, any number of avenues I can go down and explore and find out what it is I would like to do and maybe just I might like doing it, but I'll do something else as well. Yeah. So that's how I took my career. I then gradually moved to at one point to a workplace consultancy, right? And I worked with them, and we were running projects. So as I say, we were managing fit out projects. We were introducing early sort of hybrid and flexible working.
Oh, really? Right.
And that was in like the late 90s. Yeah. And then we were also providing some health and safety services, so looking at compliance, health and safety, fire safety, and so on. Mm. And there was quite a bit of move management with that. And because it was a small consultancy, I was sometimes managing colleagues, sometimes I was ending up doing work myself. Yeah, of course. And then eventually I realised I'd prefer to work for myself. Right. Just go and do my own thing. So about 16 years ago, I set out on my own.
Quite a brave thing to do that, Bernard, to be fair.
It was. And I think, so going back to the BIFM, IWFM thing, that was the basis of it. I had lots and lots of contacts. So I was able to go to those contacts, say, "Hey, look, I've set up on my own. Yeah. I think you need help with so-and-so, or do you need help with this or with that?" So I was able to key into that connectivity with those people and win work. Yep. Now, the recession in 2008, 2009 was quite a difficult period.
Challenging,
Nobody was employing consultants at that point. Mm. And I kind of pivoted a little bit to doing interim work at that point. I hadn't done any interim work up to that point, but suddenly I was pretty desperate. There was nobody wanted a consultant, but people still needed interims.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
So I started doing interim, and ever since then I've had that sort of balance of the both. So I do some consultancy work, I do some interim work, and recently quite a lot of procurement. I've done a lot of procurement over the last 2 to 3 years. Yeah, with different clients.
Was procurement a new thing for you then, or
no?
Is it something you've always kind of?
It's something I've always been involved in, and because I've worked both sides of the fence, and I've done that including as being a consultant. So I might be working with an FM service provider as bid manager, or as or part of a bid team, or assisting them in putting together tender documents.
Right, okay.
And then 6 months later, I might be working with an end user, and
Yeah.
and I'm managing the procurement process, and I'll say to the end user, well, you're not doing this every day,
Yeah.
but I do a lot of this, and I know what I'm looking for. I know what the service providers are saying and what they're offering,
Yeah.
and what I need to look out for, and I can marry that together. So I'm bringing that knowledge to the table.
Yeah, it's quite interesting because I imagine there's not too many people that get involved in the operational side, the procurement side, and also the sales side on behalf of their clients. It's quite an interesting mix.
Fairly unique.
Yeah.
So I would totally agree with you. There's people who specialise. They take a niche. They specialise in it. They're just doing procurement from the end user perspective, or they're just doing interim work, or they're just doing or they're just working with service providers. So I've always felt that's an asset.
I don't disagree. I think it definitely is. Yeah.
So I've always felt that's an asset. It's a challenge sometimes, and obviously one of the things I try very hard to do is to not have a conflict of interest. So there could be an occasion when I'll say to somebody, I can't do that work because at the moment,
I'm doing X.
Yeah. So occasionally I have to sort of work on. Let's make sure I'm not, because I'm not going to say there's Chinese walls. If there's me working on a project, then I'll know. If I'm working for two clients, I'll know about both clients and everything that's going on. So
exactly, yeah. So you can make an informed decision regarding what work to take forward. Okay, that's really interesting. So obviously you mentioned that your neighbour knocked on your door and said, "I've got a job in facilities management. Do you want to come and do it?" What did you do before, out of interest?
So I was a sales engineer.
Oh, really?
So I was both with the wear many hats type.
Yeah.
I was wearing two hats.
Yeah.
Which is I'd be suited and booted and
out in the car. Doing the miles
in the shiny car with the shiny suit, and putting on the miles and hitting a target every month. But if a client had a problem, we were the first line. We had an engineering team, but they were second line of defence. So the first responder would be
the sales guy. Yeah. That's really interesting. I've never heard of that before.
So tools in the boot. Take the jacket off. Take the tie off. And sort the problem out.
On goes the boiler suit.
So I think that was quite a good background to coming into FM.
It's quite interesting, yeah.
And I came into FM and could see that. I can sit down with a team of engineers, or I can sit down with someone who's doing sales. Yeah. And I know. I can empathise.
You know both sides of the coin. You understand those roles. So obviously you mentioned sort of engineer there. Would you say that you have like a hard services bias sometimes in FM, or?
I think I'm probably more soft services if I'm honest.
Really? Right. Okay.
And part of that is because when I first left school, I went into catering and I was going to be a hotel manager. So my early grounding was very customer focused.
Yeah.
And one of the challenges I've found with FM is that it can be a struggle to get engineers to be customer focused. They love going in the plant room.
Yeah.
They love fixing a problem. They like dealing with machinery, and they're reluctant to maybe go and talk to
deal with people.
Yeah.
No, that's fair.
Yeah, because the people are the problem, not the equipment.
Yeah, of course.
So one of the things I've always made a big point of is dealing with people as well. So if there's an issue, I'll go and talk to the person and say, so, okay, you've got a problem with the aircon or the lighting or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Let's talk about it. Let's find out what your issue is and how can it be resolved. And then I'll work with I'll maybe drag the engineer along so that the engineer can then explain what we're going to do or how we're going to fix it or what's going to happen next. But that's always worked really well. I like to go and sit down face to face. I'm not going to shy away from anybody.
Yeah.
Sit down with them and say, look, okay, you've been complaining on the help desk. Let's sort this out for you. Let's get this resolved.
So a chameleon of sorts is probably the best way to explain
Possibly,
it. Yeah, a chameleon. An FM chameleon.
Chameleon,
yeah. That's what I like to say.
That's a new one. I've been called Ninja and
FM Ninja. Yeah. I like
various other terms.
FM chameleon. An FM chameleon that wears many hats. There you go. It's really, really good. Okay, so obviously, you started your own business 16 years ago. How long were you in FM before you started your own business, out of interest?
So I suppose Probably a similar number of years, really. So,
Right, okay, so you built that bank of experience.
Yeah.
Did you have any mentors during your career from an FM perspective that helped you along the way, or anybody that you, I don't know, looked up to, got advice from, and things like that?
Not specifically,
Right.
but I think there are several people within FM who I would flag up and say, yeah, they're somebody who I'd just phone them and just sound them out on something.
Yeah.
Not specifically advice, but just saying, well, this is what's going on. What do you think? Has this happened with you at all?
So more of a network than mentor.
Yeah.
You say.
And I'm very pleased that we've started to get more into mentoring.
Yeah.
Because I'd strongly recommend that every young person that comes into FM has a mentor.
Yeah.
And that's not just for their benefit; it's for both people's benefit. So
yeah. Well, they can learn off each other, can't they?
Exactly,
The mentor and the mentoree
yeah.
can learn from each other.
And I think just sorry to interrupt.
No.
I think anybody that's starting out on their own, you really need somebody to come and advise you. And I learnt some hard lessons early on, and that's I could have done with someone saying, Bernard, well, what you need to do is
Do you think though sometimes you learn by making mistakes though? Do you think that could be quite beneficial?
It really sinks in,
Yeah.
So
the fear of ever doing it again.
well, if you've got a client that suddenly decided not to pay you because you're a one-man band, happy with the work you've done, but who cares? We're not going to pay them.
Yeah.
And I've heard that quite a lot. It's quite a common scenario.
Oh, really?
The clients I've got these days, I don't have that type of issue with, but I had it in especially my early days. I hadn't been going very long.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, let's not pay him,
Yeah, he can wait. That kind of scenario.
And the other one is somebody who's kind of a friend. As a favour, it'd be good for your profile. Can you come and do some work? Well, you're not going to pay the bills doing favours for people.
No. And
it's very nice that afterwards they do a nice little reference for you. But like I say, it doesn't pay the bills.
This is true. This is very, very true. So out of all the things that you've done in FM, do you have a favourite element? Is there a preference for you?
I really, and I haven't done a lot of it lately, and I've got one in my pipeline possibly to do. I really love delivering a project on time. So on time, within budget, and walking around with a client, and they're looking at it going, "Oh, this is amazing! It's just what we wanted." It's yeah. So that's probably something I'd say is really rewarding. Yeah.
So starting something from the beginning, taking it through to its conclusion.
Yeah.
And then seeing cause I think we all feel like that, people. I think,
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah. If I mow the lawn, when I look at it at the beginning, I'm like, that looks crap, But then I look at it afterwards and I think my garden's all right.
Look at those stripes I've done.
Exactly. Yeah. What a good gardener I am. I feel fantastic afterwards, which is really, really great. Okay, so I know that obviously you're heavily involved in IWFM Risings. What advice would you give to a young person looking to either come into the industry or somebody that's starting out their career in the industry at the minute?
Well, it's two things really. I guess it's a challenge when you're that age and you've got lots of things going on and lots of things you want to spend your money on, and membership of an association probably isn't one of them.
Yeah.
But I think what I always did is I always got my boss to pay until I set out on my own, and I'd always sell the benefits, and say, well, look, I'm going to go along to these events. I'm going to meet face to face some senior FMs, and then the next thing I'll be going in to see them, and I've got a good connection, a good relationship with them, and that's just worth its weight in gold. So that's what I'd recommend. But then actually make a point to come along to the events and network. And I know it's difficult, not everybody wants to come into a room full of strangers and
some people just really don't like it, do they? Networking.
Well, I get that. I totally get that. I don't personally have a problem with that, but I really understand how some people would. And what I'd say is that IWFM and CIBC, we try very hard to welcome new people in. So we've got an event on the Regent's Canal tomorrow evening.
Right.
I've got 3 people coming along who've never been to an event before.
Oh, really?
And I've told my committee colleagues, because I'm possibly going to be not there, right? I'm going to be rushing from another meeting, but could you make a point to look out for these 3 people and say hello and welcome them and just have a conversation with them, have a chat with them, introduce them to a few people? So we do make a real effort to do that, and we're not just a load of old guys with white hair and wrinkles boring the pants off of everyone.
No, I mean, I think it's quite admirable that there's been that there really has been a specific sort of focus from the IWFM on young people coming into facilities management with things like risings and the support that they're offering to young people. So I think that that's fantastic. Ties in with what we're trying to do with the show.
So it was brilliant when you said this to me, because I thought that's another string to the bow, really. So I was partly responsible for setting up Risings all those years ago. I found the CD-ROM that we recorded.
Did you?
Whenever it was the other day.
Right.
Which I'll share online at some point.
Yeah.
And one of the things we tried to do then, we were talking about having a representative for each of the regions in the UK.
Yeah.
And believe it or not, we've only just managed to start really doing that and have somebody on each committee around the country.
Yeah.
We intended to do it X number of years ago, and we've only just got there. Sometimes these things take time.
Yeah, of course.
The other one is CIBSE has the Young Engineers Network.
Right.
So that's another one, and they've got an event on the Tattershall Castle later this month.
Yeah.
And again, I think that's equally as important as the IW. So the IWFM one, there's quite a lot of younger members who are maybe on soft services side.
Just to go back, I don't know a great deal about CIBSE. Okay, and probably other people do. I think IWFN is far more well known. Yeah. Do you want to give us just a bit of detail?
So CIBSE is the Chartered Institute of Building Services Engineers. Right. So these are hard services people, but
engineers. You mean people hiding in cupboards?
Yeah, they're hard. Yeah. They are not just hard services. So there are plenty of, especially as they progress, there's plenty of CIBSE members who started out, they've got an engineering background, and then they end up looking after all the FM in a building.
Right, okay.
By the same token, that IWFM quite often has the reverse, where somebody started in soft services, and then one day the boss says, right, you're in charge of... the
air conditioning.
So you've now got to deal with all the hard services as well as the soft.
Yeah.
And that's a challenge for both, and that's something that we're looking to do. Probably be next year now, but we'll have one or two events where we're going to
bring them together,
right, and go through those issues of what is it like when you're suddenly landed with the hard services, and vice versa when you're landed with the soft services.
Yeah,
and there's a real tendency to play to your strength, isn't it? So
people tend to lean to either soft or hard, don't they? I think across the industry. Yeah.
So if you're really good at one of those, you will go round and be checking the cleaning or
path of least resistance. What we find a very human trait, I would say.
And the security, what's security card doing, and what's the just checking all of those ones, and then the engineer, by the same token, is in the plant room checking that there's no leaks, that everything sounds good, and there's no horrible noises or anything strange going on.
Yes, of course.
And very happy to deal with anyone who's come in to fix something.
Yeah.
Probably a bit reluctant to go out and start challenging the cleaners, the receptionist or whatever. So I think we've got a little bit of work to do there to try and improve on that. And I know it's genuinely a challenge. You suddenly got someone who's dealing with something that's outside of their comfort zone.
Yeah. Well, it's challenging. It is challenging. I think the industry. What I love about the industry is the variation. I think there's something for everybody. So I think, I tell my daughter all the time, you can't judge a goldfish by its ability to climb a tree. You know what I mean? Because a goldfish can't climb a tree, but a chimpanzee can. Incredibly gifted, right? And I think that's very similar with FM. There's so many different roles that anybody could take up, that there really is something for everybody. And sometimes it's a bit of an untapped resource because, careers, teachers and people like that aren't really talking about facilities management in schools, are they? No. But it's such a great role, and there's so many great careers and, so many great opportunities to earn a really good salary, and do incredibly well for yourself out of life.
So we've been myself and the Risings Committee have been talking to UCAS for about a year now. Mm-hmm. So we're trying to encourage them to include facilities in their list of jobs, which it's not currently
fantastic
included.
That's brilliant.
And we are also in contact with speakers for schools. They go into schools and talk to sixth formers about careers.
Yep.
And again, we're talking to them about promoting facilities as a potential employment. And the challenge around the country is that we just need to do. We can't just rely on UCAS and speakers for schools. We need to do more ourselves as well, if that's possible. I mean, we're volunteers, so there's a limited amount of time.
We're the same. Yeah. I mean, we want to take the podcast format into schools at some stage in the future. We'd really love to do that because we think it's a format that they would understand. More so than maybe just somebody sat there talking. So you could do it like a live recording, or alternatively, you could record an episode and play it in a school so that you can get around the DBS checks and all those things. So you're not taking lots of strangers into a young person's environment and things like that. So there's lots of different things that we could do, I think.
So all the schools I'm aware of have a sustainability committee, and that will be a group of fifth or probably sixth formers, and they're great. They're great to talk to, and they're full of enthusiasm about the environment, and they're very keen to understand. For the first time, they're hearing someone who's called a facilities manager who's saying to them, well, this is what we're doing and this is what we can't do yet and this is what we're hoping to do. Yeah. And, of course, they will be unfamiliar with a lot of what might be taking place, but they'll quite often know a fair bit, you know, so that they'll be saying, well, why aren't there solar panels across all the roof, you know, the school roof? Yes. And...
or across every building in London.
Yes, and why isn't this happening, and why aren't you doing that, and so forth. And it's a challenge because if they said, well, why are the school minibuses all diesel? Well, there's a limited budget. The buses are only replaced every 10 years, probably something like that. And there isn't a budget just to go out and say we'll get electric. And just replace the ones you've got. I mean, we'll have it booked for the future. We'll say right, let's do that.
Well, electric's got to work properly, hasn't it? It's got to be in a position where we've got the infrastructure around the country to be able to deliver it, so that you can get from one place to the other without issue or anything like that. It's just not there at the minute.
I had a teacher take from an inner city school take a group of students to Ben Nevis, and they climbed up Ben Nevis. Yeah, and I was. Very nervous about the diesel minibus, which was 9 years old and I didn't think was particularly well suited to a trip to Scotland. Right. Although it got there and back, but an electric one would then have the charging challenges. Yes. You've got to stop at services and hope that there's an available point and you can charge.
And that it fits, because there's no universality associated with it at the minute either, is there? So there's work to be done, in terms of infrastructure to...
So I could have you there in front of the Sixth Form Sustainability Committee explaining why the school isn't just about to buy electric minibuses tomorrow. Yeah. But all of these things, it's difficult, isn't it? When you're sort of 16, 17... You just think older people are just prevaricating and taking their time, and they're not really dealing with these challenges. But of course, it's about budget, and it's about is it feasible to introduce whatever the new technology is? So
I bet if they potentially lost their mobile phones as a direct result of you getting an electric minibus, they'd think twice, wouldn't they? They'd be all right with the diesel one, then, wouldn't they?
Okay, I want all your mobile phones. We're going to use your mobile phones to recharge the minibus for the next 10 miles.
Exactly. Yeah.
No, sir. No.
Yeah. I can see that happening. Okay, so obviously, your advice there would be to get involved with local groups like IWFM and so on and so forth if you were looking to develop.
Yes, and try to come along. I mean, cherry pick events. Don't come along to every event. Apart from anything else, some of the events are going to be over your head. Yeah, and that's one of the things we wanted to do with Risings and young engineers as well. Is their entry level, and no one's going to stand there firing off acronyms. No. And you're sat there in the audience thinking, I have no idea what this...
You've got to speak a language they understand.
Yeah. don't know what this person's talking about. So yeah, they're entry level events, and the information is entry level.
Yeah. And also, you'd direct them to wear many hats as well, wouldn't you, Bernard?
Well, I would indeed. So
really good
I
content.
say if you're so I've done quite a bit of tutoring with the IWFM, and those are not entry level; they're mid level managers.
Yeah.
So they're doing level 4, level 5.
Yeah.
And I say to them as well, you might be working in the public sector or the private sector, or maybe you're just doing this particular area, but it's worthwhile really concentrating on all of this qualification that you're doing, because you might be made redundant next year.
Well, you never know. That's the thing, do you? Yeah.
And then you get a job offer, and it's outside of where you've been. But because you've got an FM background, they say, oh, yeah, we'll employ you. Yeah. And you're going, oh, I've never done any work in a hospital or university, a law firm.
Yeah.
But you go for it, and suddenly you're thinking, well, I think I should have listened a bit more when I was doing the qualification. Because there's a whole session where I was like...
There's different challenges as well, isn't there, in different areas of the economy. So.
And I'm going to flag up that I was at college and we used to bunk off with health and safety because we didn't think it was that. We thought it was boring and we didn't think it was that important.
Right.
And then years later, I'm like, I should have attended those sessions, shouldn't I?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
What was I thinking?
Yeah, it's a big thing now, isn't it? It's a big thing.
So,
what about things like IOSH and NEBOSH and things like that?
Really good idea. Yeah. I'd strongly recommend doing. Look at where you're working and what you're dealing with. But yes, IOSH and NEBOSH are both very strong on your CV when you're applying for a job. Yeah,
of course.
Much the same as a lot of the recruiters are looking for IWFM membership, or indeed if you're an engineer, CIBSE membership.
Yeah.
Those memberships and IOSH and NEBOSH are real pluses when you're applying for a job. And when I'm interviewing or reviewing roles for somebody, this could be a make or break. You know, I've got 3 CVs. They're all very similar. Yeah. And this one on the right here has done IOSH and NEBOSH. Well, that's another tick in the box. That's one less thing for me to.
It sets them aside slightly.
Yes.
Okay. So, what type of traits are you looking for when you're looking at CVs, then, Bernard? Are you looking for attitude? Are you looking for qualifications? What do you want to see on a CV?
It does depend on the role that the person is doing. So, somebody who's doing a help desk role is, I want them to be affable and amenable. I don't want them arguing with.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm calling the help desk. Do you realise I go home in 5 minutes? I haven't got time to,
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
I don't want that I don't want an attitude, effectively. So that would be a help desk role. But if I'm looking for a facilities manager or deputy facilities manager, then I'm looking for a wider range of skills, and I want to get the feeling that they're not someone who's going to be sat behind the desk or hiding in the plant room or somewhere. Yeah, you want somebody that's proactive. That's proactive.
Yeah.
And my recommendation, and it doesn't work if you're looking after an international contract, I know, or a very big national contract. But I personally will walk as much of a building as I can when I arrive in the morning.
Yeah.
And spot things before we get a call on the help desk.
Right.
Now I appreciate that's not feasible if you've got a big campus site or you're looking after 30 buildings spread across Europe, for instance. But it's good in the sense of even just the people who work in that particular building where you're based get to know who you are, and they see you, and you get a rapport with them. And
so as a good practice, walk the building everywhere. That's a really good piece of advice, actually.
And so when I'm looking at CVs, I'd like to see some sort of hint that this is somebody who gets out there and isn't just crunching Excel spreadsheets and sitting behind faceless. They're at their desk. They've got all the paperwork up to date, but I think they need.
But they're out in the community of the building or the site, and becoming a part of that community effectively.
Yeah, and that's what I always endeavour to do if I'm on a site, even whatever role I'm there doing. I like people to know who I am, and I'm not going to hide away and pretend that you need to call the help desk. I don't know anything about it type approach.
Yeah, of course. Okay, so moving on to something slightly different. Obviously, you've been in FM for quite a significant period of time. What role do you see artificial intelligence having in the industry, and do you think it's going to be positive, negative? How do you see that playing out over the next 5 years, let's say?
I'd say mostly positive. One of the things, which going back to what I've literally just said, is freeing up some time and spending a bit less time on paperwork.
Yeah.
So I see that as a positive.
So the digitisation of
Of
documentation
yes.
is going to aid in the delivery
Yeah.
of the
So
service.
I've worked with CAFM systems where I can pull the information out, and then I've got to spend some time tweaking it and adjusting it before I can share it with anybody.
Yes.
And that's the sort of area where I see, at a very basic level, I see a better automation, and I can just click send, and all that information is just immediately gone and off to whoever needs to see it.
Yeah.
On the downside, I've also seen where somebody's going for a qualification, for instance, and is just had Chat GPT or similar write a section of their work. But that was blatantly obvious because the rest of their work was so bad that I just spotted a paragraph that looked completely out of place and challenged it.
Right.
And sure enough, they came clean and said, "Oh yeah, Well, I think you'll find. I would suggest that most people who are, if you're looking at, if you're assessing people, or if you're tutoring or whatever, you're going to spot.
Yeah.
Particularly at the moment, the level we're at the moment, I don't think things like Chat GPT are that slick just yet.
No.
They're a bit clunky, and you'll look at it and say, yeah, there's something wrong with this.
Yeah, I mean, I use Chat, but I use it in a different way. See, I write everything out first, and then I'll put it through Chat. And the main reason I do that is because I write how I talk. So I'm very how I am in front of you now is how I will write when I'm responding to something or something like that, and that's sometimes not a great thing, whereas if you write it and then put it through Chat, it just takes away that little bit of who you are. The content is still the same because I've framed that content and it's saying what I want it to say, but it's saying it in such a way that it's not some random northern fella. Who likes chips and gravy, you know what I mean? That's I like that as a tool in terms of AI.
Put wood in Thor, mate.
Exactly. Oh, it's good.
Oh, I didn't mean that in the article. Damn.
Exactly. But it is true. It just take away that that element of like you're still getting the message across. You've still written the content, but it's not that. If someone knows me, if it was me writing it, that they would literally be like I was there speaking to them because they'd be able to hear my voice and things like that. So it's pretty good.
It's difficult, isn't it? I think when we read the written word, I guess when you get a writer, when you get an author who decides to write colloquially and sometimes you're thinking, I just can't get this accent in my head. They've tried to put a Norfolk accent or American.
Hey up, son, and things like that.
And they put something in there. I'm reading it, thinking, I think I'd rather you just left it as just straightforward English because I'm not really following this very well.
Yeah. I mean, I don't do it so like hey up, I don't do it like that when I'm writing, but I keep it professional. But you can still tell it's me if that makes sense.
So I think in the round, AI will arguably be a good thing. It might, of course, it might lead to there might be a few jobs lost along the way. But I think if we look back at some of the previous automation, that there's always a human in the background.
Well, it creates jobs. It creates support jobs. It creates, there is a creation of jobs off the back of it. So I just think with technology, it just tends to shift. It becomes something else. It's like when we invented the train and we were able to travel. Like people didn't stop working; they just started doing something else. And I think that it'll be kind of along those lines.
So IoT is one of the things which I think is really. We're still not tapping into the potential of it properly. And that's great where you instead of finding out when the building's freezing cold at 8 a.m. on a Monday morning that there's a problem, you found out on Sunday afternoon and you've dispatched an engineer to fix it.
To get it resolved. Which would be quite good. Okay, brilliant. So in your opinion, what's your view on environmental, social and governance issues and how they will impact facilities management over the coming years?
So we've had a bit of to-ing and froing in the UK, really, in terms of some of these issues. And I think whatever is happening politically, that in line with the rest of the Western world, we are moving to reduce our, we're heading towards carbon zero or in that direction.
Yep.
I personally don't see many of the clients that I work with doing enough at the moment. So they've got a target. 2030 is quite a popular one.
It is, yeah.
And that's not very far away. I think we need to be doing a bit more than putting in some LEDs. We need to be doing a lot more than that.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult if you've got a campus site in the middle of the countryside. 95% of your people drive in.
Yeah.
And you've got elderly buildings there, which are very hard to do very much with.
Yeah, they're listed and things like that. So, the planning issues come into play.
So I think it's without a doubt a big challenge, and I'm fascinated to see what's going to happen and how people are going to reach those targets.
Yeah, well, there's talk of the planning arrangements being altered slightly, isn't there, or new regulations coming in with regards to planning in the UK. Mind you, they've been saying that for a long time, haven't they?
Well, they have, and I think we have to recognise that the majority of our buildings will still be around in 30 years' time.
Yeah.
And we've got to make them far more efficient than they currently are.
Yeah, make them future-proof.
And that's really hard. I live in an Edwardian building, and it's from an energy perspective, it's a disaster.
I bet, yeah.
Lovely to live in, but not at all energy efficient. And
no.
Realistically, we've got a really steep hill to climb to try and hit some of those targets.
So you think there's a lot of work to do there then?
There definitely is.
Yeah.
There definitely is. I think if I was starting afresh right now, when 15 years or 20 years ago, say roughly, I might aim to say, well, I'll head for I'll head for doing looking at sustainability, because every client I work with is like, oh, we need to get someone in and
to do that
and help us, and also some of my clients have employed somebody, so they've found some budget and said, right, we're going to have a sustainability officer or manager or whatever title they're given, and that person is just, that's all they're going to do. They're just going to focus entirely on that, because the average FM, and I think this is quite pertinent for younger people coming into the industry. The average FM, it's a very, very diverse role, and you are wearing many hats.
Yes.
Exactly that.
Yeah.
So 1 minute you're dealing with a security incident, the next minute there's a flood, then the power's gone down.
Yeah.
Then someone's complaining about the catering and the lunch.
Yeah.
And there's always people who are too hot and too cold in the buildings.
Yeah.
And you're quite possibly, you might be dealing with the car fleet, you might be dealing with car parking, you might be dealing with overseas travel, you might be dealing with, and certainly business continuity could well be in there.
Yeah.
And you're trying to liaise with HR and IT, who you'll work quite closely with.
Yeah.
And you're juggling all of that, and it's an awful lot to deal with. And something like sustainability might just be slipping off the edge because you're so busy with everything else.
Yeah. So I guess what you're saying there, we probably need more focus on that area and more resource to enable FMs to be able to focus on that area. Yeah. Okay, that's really interesting. Okay, so as an individual, how do you stay informed about trends and things like that within the facilities management industry? Do you do anything outside of, because obviously I know you network quite specifically, but do you do anything outside of that?
So I do receive and endeavour to read as many of the journals as possible.
Yep. So the FMJ, things like that.
FMJ, PNFM, and so on. I receive all of those. I don't get hard copy anymore, but I receive all of those by email.
Yep.
And such as coming in today, I'm on the tube and I'm reading. One of those to get up to date on whatever's going on. So that's one of my main sources. But obviously, also I'm at a lot of networking events. And that is a big help as well. And I pick up a lot of information from those networking events. And then I partly use that to help guide where we're going with the networking event. So what is topical and what should we be doing next?
Yep.
And one of the ones that we're going to organise later in the year is an event on Martin's Law.
Yes, that's coming in. Yeah, that's coming in soon.
There's a promise from the new government to...
specifically Kia as well. He wrote a letter, didn't he?
Stating he will push it through. Yeah. He met with Figan Murray and was very responsive and promised her that he would make this law, because is it 7 years, I think, since the Manchester bombing?
Yeah, it's got to be. The thing is as well, is because there's a real lack of understanding, I think, with Martin's Law about how it will or won't impact certain facilities.
It's smaller facilities are not terribly keen.
It's going to, well, I think there's got to be some clarification around what volume of individuals within a building facility site is this going to be applicable to? So I think it's going to have to come out with levels associated with it. I
think there's a whole sort of church hall scenario. So church halls are saying, well, hang on a minute, we've got 50 people coming in for a tombola or whatever they're doing. We're not going to be paying a security guard to check all of their bags when they come in. So it was the smaller venues were one of the sort of sticking points. But in the round, better security at large venues.
Completely agree.
And the installation of emergency trauma packs are, a big step forwards. And if you think about, so where I live, at either end of my road, which is a sort of a high street, there's defibrillators.
Yeah.
And now there didn't used to be years ago.
No, they didn't know. Yeah.
So they've been installed, and I see them in wherever I'm working. I'll be in a town in different parts of the country, and I'll see there's a defibrillator somewhere. They're everywhere.
Yeah. And I wonder if most of them work though, Bernard. To be fair, that would be quite an interesting. Do you think they all work? Are they serviced?
I don't actually know who.
Neither do I.
Who's installed them or whatever. What I did notice is that a lot of them are the ones where I am are you just open them up and you can connect to somebody who instructs you what to do.
Yeah.
And then I see some in other parts of the country where there's a big padlock and you have to phone a number and they give you a...
Well, that's not necessarily what you want if somebody's gone down, is it? You know,
the code is
an automated voice on the other end of the line.
Yeah, telling you how to unlock because obviously they get vandalised or stolen or something, which is really sad. But my point is, I think the fact that we managed to get those all over the country suggests to me that emergency trauma packs should be dead easy to say, well, big venue, the XL or the Albert Hall or wherever. Yeah, let's just get them installed.
Well, to be fair, you could just you could just pass that on to the security companies to provide those as part of their service. The same way they provide radios or anything along those lines. It's just another piece of kit that they need to provide at a venue dependent on what's taking place and the volume of people that are going to be there.
So I'm used to I'll audit a building and I'll have a look in the first aid box and see how old everything is and is everything in there and is there anything in there that shouldn't be in there, etc., etc. And that would just be another thing I'd add onto my list and say, right, I'll open that up. And seriously, first aid boxes in buildings, I've been in lots of buildings where it's very random, like where is it? Oh, I think it's underneath the sink in the tea point. Or I get to it and everything's like 5 years out of date. It can be it's one of those things that tends to be overlooked.
Yes.
And obviously, that's not, that's really quite disappointing.
Yeah.
It's a simple thing to keep up to date.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, without a doubt. Okay. That kind of brings us to the end.
Okay.
How did you find it?
I thought you were going to have another half a dozen questions, but
no, we've got to keep it to about 45 minutes. To be fair,
well, I can easily talk for. We'll
certainly have another episode with you, because I didn't get anywhere near through all the questions. So we'll definitely have to.
Well, there you go. I thought you'd missed some questions.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to bring you back, Bernard. To be fair,
okay.
I do have one question though, just sort of outside of work. Mm-hmm. What do you like to get up to? What gives you joy? What do you enjoy doing?
I do enjoy doing. I enjoy travelling. So I've been to lots of countries around the world, and I quite like to get into the nitty gritty and get away from tourists and eat the local food and meet the locals and find out what makes them tick and what goes on in other countries. I enjoy doing a bit of DIY.
Yeah, are you any good at it?
Fairly good. I think it depends what it is, doesn't it?
Yeah, I'm terrible. I tried to play some doors the other day, made an absolute hash of it.
Well, I'm just having a bit of a problem with the wall at the moment, trying to get my bike up onto one of those things that hangs on the.
I had them before actually in my old house. There were these little clips. I don't know if you're talking about the same thing, but you clip the tyre into it and it sits against the wall.
Yeah,
they're really cool space saving things.
So it's not my. I'm going to blame the wall rather than my idea.
Oh right, it's the wall. Yeah.
It's a bit of a dodgy. It's an Edwardian building. It's a dodgy wall.
Yeah.
But and of course I did I watched 2 matches on Saturday. So
did you watch them both? Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think of the England game?
Well, I thought England were trying to bore Switzerland to death. To be honest,
we were trying to slow them down, Bernard. That's what we were doing.
So I'm hoping if you look at how Turkey played.
Yeah.
And the energy and enthusiasm, they lost, but the amount of
they went for it.
They really went for it, and that's what I'd like to see England doing because they've got the talent to do it. So let's.
I don't know. We're just being incredibly cautious for some reason.
Too cautious.
Yeah, too cautious.
And we need to get the players up right up and attacking. Not
we can't keep going 1-0 down, Bernard.
No.
If we keep going 1-0 down, there's going to be a game where we don't claw it back. So I think we need to start going. He needs to drop Kane as well. Kane's been terrible. He just hasn't been the player. I think going to Bayern Munich has affected him because it's. I don't want to sound horrible, but it's a farmers' league, isn't it? It's if you excuse the pun, but that's the reality. He's playing a lesser level of football. So he's just not at the same level that he would have been if was he in the Premier League. Unfortunately, I know that sounds terrible, but it's true.
Yeah. No, I don't disagree.
Yeah. All right, Bernard. But listen, it's been an absolute pleasure having you here today.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we will definitely have to bring you back for an episode 2, I think.
Cool.
And talk about some other bits and pieces. All right, guys. Well, listen, thank you. That's the end of another episode of Wear Many Hats. Thank you very much for joining in. As ever, I'm sure Bernard won't mind if any of you want to reach out to him over LinkedIn to have a chat to him about his podcast or ask him any questions or, even just, ask him about his insights into the industry. But as ever, thank you very much and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.